To start with, I'd like to share a segment from my major multimedia project, Battling Diabulimia. My MMP was an audio documentary focused on issues surrounding the complex eating disorder diabulimia, available support, and whether an official diagnosis would help create more support. I wanted to focus my MMP on this topic as diabulimia is so rarely recognised by the media, so I wanted to be able to raise awareness, projecting the voices of those suffering from it, as well as demonstrating originality. I was able to conduct 5 interviews, including those with experience of diabulimia and healthcare professionals, some of which you'll be able to hear in the following segment. My MMP was targeted towards Radio 4 Women's Hour. I felt my audio documentary was well suited to my target publication as it explores a range of different social issues.
It was like addictive. It was like really, really dark. Like I knew that I shouldn't be doing this and I was ashamed of it.
The thing is with diabulimia, it's like any eating disorder really. It's like an addiction or, like a cycle, and once it starts, it's really hard to break. It's a bit like a magic trick really. You'll eat a big dinner and go to bed, and then when you wake up, you've lost 2 more pounds.
I'm Lizzie Curzen, and this is Battling Diabulimia. This is a sound not many people would be familiar with, but for me as a type 1 diabetic, it's a sound I recognise instantly, a blood sugar testing kit. People with type 1 have to control their blood sugars by testing them and administering a hormone called insulin. People with diabulimia are type 1 diabetics who omit insulin purposely as a way of being able to lose weight. Treatment options for this have been very limited so far, as diabulimia is a media-coined phrase as opposed to an official diagnosis, despite the fact that it affects around 1 in 4 women with type 1 and has a mortality rate of around 38%.
Most diabetes centres had, we're seeing people who lived with disordered eating, but we wouldn't even ask the questions. We wouldn't even open the can of worms because we didn't know where to go with it. We didn't know how to support people. I had absolutely no skills in eating disorders at all. And so actually it remained very hidden.
This is Dr. Helen Partridge. She's a diabetic consultant who works for TIDE, which stands for Type 1 and Disordered Eating. Based in Bournemouth, this is one of the first available services in the UK for both diabetes and eating disorders.
It was an opportunity. I mean, the reason it started here was because actually we had a young lady who was really struggling with an eating disorder, and I reached out to my colleagues at the eating disorder service and said, look, I've got this young lady, I need some help. And they came and sat in with some clinics with us, and we did some joint working, and then this young lady ended up needing an admission to the eating disorders unit for quite a significant length of time, which meant that we had to work very closely because we had to help support them manage the diabetes whilst she was inpatient in an eating disorders unit, which is a challenging time for anyone.
This young lady was Naomi. The combined diabetes and eating disorders team she had access to was a breakthrough in the world of diabetes, as diabulimia is such a rarely recognised condition. She talked me through her journey and the treatment she received.
I think healthcare professionals don't ask the hard questions or just don't know what to do with their patients, because, for example, I was just referred from place to place and nobody knew what to do. So my team, they called the eating disorder team at St Anne's Hospital in Poole, and then they started working together, and they created a multidisciplinary team of diabetes nurses and diabetologists with the eating disorder dietitian and mental health nurses and the psychiatrist.
The next piece I wanted to include was part of a story I covered for BAMJ Converged Newsdays earlier this year. I was lucky enough to be able to travel to the Vitality Stadium, where I interviewed AFC Bournemouth chairman Jeff Mustin about the club and the financial difficulties they had faced due to COVID. I had to be careful here with the rules around privacy, and I worked closely with my editor to ensure that nothing Mr. Mustin didn't want broadcast was included. This was to ensure to adhere to section 7.15 of Ofcom regarding significant harm to contributors revealing sensitive material. I wanted to include this piece as being able to secure an interview with the AFC Bournemouth chairman was something I was proud of, and I was given a full behind-the-scenes tour of the stadium, which I was able to include shots of in my piece. I felt this helped to bring the piece together. This also showcases some of the presenting I did for Buzz News as part of TV Newsdays. Of AFC Bournemouth has said the last 18 months have been difficult for the club financially following relegation. The Cherries were relegated from the Premier League in July 2020. For over a year, the club was forced to play behind closed doors because of the coronavirus pandemic. The club says this had significant impact on finances alongside the strict financial fair play regulations imposed by the EFL.
You have no revenue from supporters. It's not just bums on seats, as we call them. It's also the commercial revenue of hospitality, of programme sales, of food and drink. And all those things, add up to a huge amount of money that needs to be found by the football club.
The next piece I chose to include was an audio package that I produced for Buzz News as part of Converge Newsdays. This was about a refugee charity and how COVID affected them. I chose this package as I thought the ongoing refugee situation is a relevant topic, and it also tells audiences what can be done to help. If I was to do this again, I would have included a line about how the government declined to comment to ensure the piece was balanced, as it included an interviewee's own opinion regarding the government and refugees. I worked on this piece from home as I had COVID at the time, and I think it outlines what can be achieved remotely as well as communication skills within the team. Mike Hearn founded Blandford Cares in 2015 to help deliver aid to refugee camps in Europe, Africa and Sudan. He explained why the work he does to help refugees is so important.
Basically because the government aren't. One of those things, there's a lot of the feeling, right, we're very full of sympathy for this, but what can we do about it? And we just looked at each other and said, well, why not us? We had a load of camping gear at the start and we had an empty van, so we just shoved it all in and went. And that's what people should do. If they care about it, they should actually say, well, what can I do? Because every little bit does help.
Alison Dalton, a volunteer for the charity, urges people to help.
It's been really great to be able to help people and see the difference it makes to people's lives. I'd encourage anyone considering helping or in a position to donate to do so, because it's so needed.
Lizzie Curzen, Buzz News. The next piece I chose to include was another audio piece from Converge Newsdays. This was a local piece about a charity relocating to a larger store. I secured the interview, and a member of the Red team decided to use the story for TV as well. So we filmed the interview together, and I used the audio from this to select 2 short segments which could both go with a script for both bulletins. I think this is a clear example of one of the main objectives of Converge Newsdays, the collaboration and convergence between groups to produce stories. This is another example of my presenting skills, and it also demonstrates that not all stories have to be told in a serious tone, and some can be delivered in a more light-hearted way. Here is the segment from the 1 p.m. bulletin. Staffy and Stray Rescue in Kinson are expanding to a larger shop. Manager Sophie explained they'd be barking mad to stay in the smaller shop when they can relocate across the road.
I think in recent years, especially now during sort of COVID, we've had a massive increase of dogs needing our help. We've kind of built up quite a nice community. We have a lot of regular custom. The shop here is actually really, really small as well, so it's actually been quite difficult in terms of storage, keeping the shop clean and tidy. It's just, I feel like we've now outgrown this shop.
And following on from the 1 p.m. bulletin, here is a segment from the 4 p.m. radio bulletin of the same day. Staffy and Stray charity shop in Kinson have got their paws on a new boutique-style space, according to manager Sophie.
Everything's made out of recycled materials. There's old wooden ladders used as the shelving, and we've got big wooden circular tables as well, and big wooden displays. So it's going to be a very rustic, modern feel, but it's still going to be a charity shop, still with items at really good prices.
The next piece I'm including was one for a Converge Newsdays TV bulletin, which I researched and presented about e-scooters. I had an interview with the CEO of Beryl, which fell through at the last minute, so I had to use a quote from him instead. This demonstrates quick adaptation skills when plans fall through. The CEO of Beryl has addressed concerns over the safety of e-scooters in Bournemouth. This comes after recent videos were posted on social media showing e-scooters appearing to smoke. Phil Ellis, CEO of Beryl, said in a press statement, I believe that there is currently a lot of misreporting, particularly in national media, that is portraying an unfair picture of e-scooters as gadgets and undermining their legitimacy as a genuine transport option.